we want to shift our life, then one of the most important things that we need to realize is the power of our minds. The way that we perceive reality is largely determined by our beliefs. We literally see the world through the filter of our own unique belief system. And there's even interpretations within quantum physics which correlate to ideas within the law of attraction, and which might even suggest that our mind and our beliefs can influence our reality. So based on all of this, our beliefs clearly play a very important role in our life. Now, the problem is that most of us over the course of our lives have programmed our mind, or they've been programmed by other factors around us, but our mind has been programmed into a set of beliefs that doesn't align with the reality that we want to experience. So it's very important that we learn how to reprogram our mind. Hi everyone, my name's Georgia. I actually just finished studying a master's degree in consciousness, spirituality and transpersonal psychology. I just handed in my dissertation, which is why I haven't filmed a video in a few weeks. Now that that's finally in, I have so much more time that I can actually devote to researching topics outside of my dissertation and focus more on making YouTube videos, so I'm very happy about that. And this is actually my first time as well using a microphone. A couple of people told me that my sound was terrible, so I thought I'll try out using a microphone. This is my first time using one, so hopefully it's working. So anyway, in today's video, I want to talk about how we can reprogram our mind. This is something that we all need to do if we want to shift our reality, because obviously taking action is one thing. We all need to take action. But that action might be pointless, or at the very least very difficult, if we don't also align our mind to whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. And why make it more difficult than it needs to be? Why not harness the power of your mind to make your actions that much more effective, and to harness the power of manifestation? So now I'm going to go through 3 methods that we can use to start to reprogram our mind into beliefs that are actually in alignment with the reality that we're trying to create. So the first thing that I want to talk about is rewiring our neural pathways. Now, this is based on the idea of neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity basically refers to the brain's ability to rewire itself and rewire its neural pathways in response to our thoughts and our actions. So we have different neural pathways in our brain that are associated with different thoughts. Now, the really cool thing is these pathways aren't just set, so we can actually change the pathways in our brain to make it easier to think certain thoughts. So if you've ever noticed that you have certain thoughts that you constantly think all the time, the reason for that is because the more you think a thought, the more you strengthen a neural pathway, and then the more natural it becomes for you to think that thought. Now, this process is really helpful if you're thinking really good thoughts, really positive thoughts that are in alignment with the reality that you're trying to create, but it's obviously quite detrimental if you're thinking thoughts that contradict the reality that you're trying to create, because the more you think them, the more you're going to strengthen those pathways, and the more natural it is going to be for you to think those detrimental thoughts, which isn't what we want, because those thoughts directly influence the way in which we perceive reality. And if you believe in manifestation or the law of attraction, then they might actually have an influence over your physical reality too. So how do we harness the power of neuroplasticity to reprogram our mind? There's basically 2 sides to this that I've already hinted to. So on the one hand, we can either weaken or prune away altogether the neural pathways that are associated with the thoughts that we don't want, and then we can also create new neural pathways that are associated with the thoughts that we do want to be thinking, and we can use neuroplasticity to strengthen those pathways. Now, looking at the first side of that, the fact that we can weaken or prune away certain neural pathways, we want to harness this power to get rid of any old thought patterns that aren't serving us anymore, that are completely contradicting the reality that we're trying to create. So for example, if you're trying to create a life of abundance, but you just have thoughts of how money is hard to come by, of how you're lacking in so many areas of life, we want to be able to get rid of those old thought patterns and replace them with ones of abundance. So the way that we get rid of thought patterns is quite simple. It's by not exercising those thought patterns anymore. The less that we exercise those thought patterns, then we give time for the neural pathways associated with them to weaken and to eventually prune away. So the way that we can actually do this is through meditation. When we practice meditation and we're focusing on our breath, or whatever practice of meditation you're doing, our mind doesn't really have anything else to do except to throw all of our thought patterns at us. Just thoughts will keep coming up and coming up and coming up. So meditation is the perfect opportunity to train yourself to allow these thought patterns to come by and to let them go. because what usually happens is we feed into these thought patterns. We get carried away by the thought, essentially. It takes a lot of practice and patience to learn to actually observe your thoughts and not be carried away by them. So if you can have the patience of doing this and practice meditation a lot and learn to just let the thoughts go by, then what you're doing by not feeding into them is allowing the neural pathways associated with those thoughts to start to weaken and prune away. And you don't have to do this in meditation. You can also practice this in your day-to-day life by just practicing mindfulness, essentially again just trying to notice when these thought patterns come up and not giving into them. Don't feed into the thought pattern by going down those thought spirals that we go down. So that's the first side of neuroplasticity. The second side is creating and strengthening neural pathways that are associated with the thoughts that we want to think. So what we want to do is intentionally introduce thoughts that are in alignment with the reality that we're trying to create. Now, one obvious way that you can do this that many people always suggest is through affirmations, because when we're doing affirmations, we are choosing the thoughts that we want to imprint on our mind, and we're constantly repeating them to create those neural pathways and to strengthen them. But again, this is something that you can also just do in your daily life by pairing it with the mindfulness that I talked about before. When we notice our repetitive thought patterns coming up, then we can firstly notice them and not feed into them, and then we can intentionally introduce an opposite thought, a thought that aligns with what we actually want to manifest in life. So creating new neural pathways is really just about introducing the thoughts that we want to be thinking and doing it again so persistently and so diligently that eventually we actually rewire our brain in alignment with those new thoughts. Now, the second thing that we can do to reprogram our mind is use visualization. Again, visualization is a technique that's often talked about in the law of attraction sphere. Now, visualization is just when we use our imagination to visualize whatever it is that we're trying to create, whatever reality it is that we want to experience. Now, the basis for why visualization is so powerful is because of something called mirror neurons. Now, these are neurons that we have that basically activate both when we do a specific task, but also when we see someone else doing a task. So they first found out about mirror neurons in monkeys. They noticed that when monkeys witnessed a person grasping a specific object, that the same areas of the monkey's brain would light up as when the monkey was grasping the object themselves. So basically the same neurons were active whether or not the monkey was grasping the object themselves or whether they were viewing someone else grasping the object. And it's the same with humans as well. We can activate certain neurons not just by doing the task ourselves, but also by seeing a task being done. So we can harness this ability through visualization, because even though we're just visualizing something in our mind, even though we're not actually doing it in physical reality, we're still activating areas of our brain anyway. And this links back to neuroplasticity. Simply by visualizing something, we can actually rewire our brain and strengthen neural pathways in our brain. So all of this really just demonstrates the power of our imagination. I feel like in today's society, so much emphasis is placed on just taking action. And of course, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take action, you absolutely should. But I feel like the idea of just using our imagination and visualizing things is looked down upon in comparison to taking action, when in reality, when we look at things like mirror neurons, it just shows how powerful imagination can be in reshaping our brain. So basically, if you want to reprogram your mind in order to manifest a particular reality, then you absolutely should harness the power of visualization, because visualization is really going to have a powerful effect on your brain. Now, the third way in which we can start to reprogram our mind is by seeking confirmation. And what I mean by this is seeking evidence for the beliefs that we're trying to create. Now, if you think about it for a minute, the reason we believe certain things is because we've seen evidence for it. But the thing that we have to realize is that this evidence doesn't necessarily represent some kind of ultimate truth. Now, let me give you an example for this. So let's think about two families. One of these families is a very rich family. They've never had to struggle with money, so the children in the family have grown up knowing that they have access to all of the resources they need. They believe that money is easy to come by. They've never had any struggles relating to money, so they have a very positive outlook on money. Now, on the other hand, let's think of a family who's actually had struggles with money. So the children have grown up seeing their parents struggle with money, seeing their parents struggle with trying to provide the resources they need. Maybe they've seen arguments surrounding money, and so they'll have grown up with beliefs which are very different to the other family. They will have grown up with beliefs that money is hard to come by, that money doesn't grow on trees. So that's one of people's favourite phrases. All these kind of negative beliefs surrounding money. Now, in both of these cases, the money is exactly the same. It's exactly the same thing. So it's not the money that's different. It's people's beliefs surrounding the money that's different based on their experience, based on the evidence that they have experienced in their life which has led to these beliefs. So if you want to program your mind into a new set of beliefs, then you need to intentionally seek out evidence which backs up those beliefs. We can essentially change our beliefs by shifting our focus. So let's say you have negative beliefs surrounding money and you want to change these into beliefs of abundance so that you can attract more abundance into your life. Then what I would suggest you do is take a journal and start noting down everything that you experience which corresponds to this idea of abundance. And I think the thing we need to realize here as well is that this doesn't need to be huge things. These things can be incredibly small. It's just about accumulating evidence that backs up the belief no matter how small it is. So for example, it could be something as simple as I was able to eat lunch today, or maybe someone gave you a gift card for your birthday. Or it can even be things that already are happening in your life. So for example, whenever you get a paycheck from work, whatever it is, just note all of these things down. However insignificant you believe they are, what you're basically doing is accumulating a set of evidence that you are experiencing abundance in your life. And the more that you focus on these things, then the more you're going to see these things, because that's just the way our mind works. The more we focus on something, the more our mind then zones in on that in our life around us. It all comes back to the fact that our perception is based on our beliefs or what we're focusing on. So the more that you train your mind to look out for abundance by constantly seeking confirmation and noting it down, then the more that you're going to experience abundance. And of course you can do this for whatever other beliefs it is that you're trying to program in as well. Just keep making a list of things, no matter how small they are, that confirm this belief to you. So if you do all of these three things that I've just talked about with enough patience and perseverance, then what you're going to notice is that eventually these new thoughts that you're programming in are going to become so much more natural. You're going to start thinking them more naturally without having to actually intentionally think them. And what this means is that you've started to reprogram your mind. Now, if you want to go beyond the neuroscience and see the impact of all of these different practices and understand how they might actually influence our reality based on quantum physics, then I have a video where I go really in depth into the science, into the quantum physics that correlates to manifestation. So if you're interested in that, then I'll link this video here. Otherwise, I really hope this video was helpful to you. I hope that you are able to implement these tips to reprogram your mind and shift your reality. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.